Welcome to the High Performance Edge, the podcast for contractors who lead with building science and want to turn that advantage into a stronger, more successful business. Whether you're in HVAC, insulation, solar, or home performance, we dig into strategy, sales, marketing, operations, hiring, and customer service approaches that power stable, more profitable companies. Hear from top contractors and industry experts as we explore what it takes to thrive as a very different kind of contractor. Here's your host, founder and CEO of Energy Circle, Peter Troast.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for being here. Today, we're getting into something I lie awake thinking about, and I suspect a lot of you do too. How AI is actually going to change the day-to-day of running contracting businesses. There's an insane amount of AI hype out there, and cutting through the noise is going to be an ongoing topic on the podcast. My goal for the AI episodes is to be real and practical. My guest today is Furman Haynes, co-founder of WorkHero, and one of the sharpest, clearest thinkers I know on real-world AI. What makes Furman interesting is that he didn't set out to build an AI company. He set out to solve the admin problem that is so challenging for small, quality-first HVAC shops, and ended up in AI because that's where the leverage turned out to be. We get into the distinction between software, automation, and AI, it matters, and walk through real examples, job costing, custom quoting, rebate processing. But what I love about this conversation is where Furman lands at the end, that AI might finally start to close the gap between doing great work and the administrative burden of running a healthy business. This is a good one. Furman Haynes, welcome. Great to have you. Great to see you. And let's just start off with, who's Furman? Tell us about what WorkHero is. And I think in particular, talk a little bit about how you became this de facto expert on AI and small contracting businesses.
I don't know about that, but I'm really glad to be here, Peter. Thanks for having me. I'm Furman. I'm one of the co-founders of WorkHero. We spend a lot of time thinking about the small craftsmen in this industry. You and I both know some of these people. I'll give a shout out to those like Robin Henry at Building Pinnacle out in Colorado, or Caden Oren at Lewis Legacy. These are small HVAC contractors, craftsmen who do really good quality work, and in some cases don't have a full-time dedicated office manager to run their office. And we all know the many, many contractors out there like that. And how WorkHero got started is my co-founder and I just started spending a lot of time with these people, ride-alongs at the supply houses down in Florida at HVAC school training symposium. And it was really clear right away that the difference in many ways between a good and a great HVAC business comes down to the office management, the person that's making the invoicing and cash flow and customer experience decisions. And so we started by thinking about how to solve that problem manually or through expertise that we have hired onto our team at WorkHero, and over time have realized the opportunity around AI. But it started from this place of there's an admin problem in this industry, and we think that admin problem is actually existential to many small contractors. And if we can solve that, the rest should take care of itself.
Cool. Interesting. Well, I think one of the things that I find particularly interesting is I know while you are relatively young and you started the company in the era of AI, you didn't intentionally launch it, and nor do you promote yourselves as an AI company. And yet you're using it pretty regularly and obviously very effectively. So tell us a little bit about that piece of how AI became so embedded in what WorkHero is doing.
So much of this comes down to how contractors use their existing systems of record. I'm thinking primarily of their field service management software like House Call Pro, Service Titan, Jobber. There's a million out there. And these are powerful tools, right? And these are systems of record that help organize information in the field and with customers. And what we saw again and again is, for that 1, 2, 3 truck operation that didn't yet have a full-time person in-house dedicated to managing their software, they weren't utilizing it effectively or really fully, right? They didn't have the price book built into it. They didn't have the invoicing workflows fully built out. Maybe they weren't even scheduling out of it. I remember one of the first times I did a ride along with a guy up in New Hampshire. He was trying to use Jobber, but he was effectively using Jobber just like a glorified task management tool. He was like taking notes in it. But when I said, well, are you actually scheduling customers in? Are you invoicing customers? He's like, no, I just do that in QuickBooks. And so this is a long way of telling you that in seeing that these tools are underutilized, what we realize is that if we could hire expert office managers and offer them out on a fractional basis, and plug into their systems, we could become this expert human layer that sits on top of their system of record. And that's what WorkHero is. And then over time, we realized that there's a huge opportunity to not just be a human layer, but an AI layer that sits on top of their system of record and takes action. And that action can look like, a lot of back office work, billing, rebates, price books, registering the equipment. But it started from this place of seeing that these small contractors needed to use their existing tools better. And then realizing we could build not just a human layer, but an AI layer that can really help them improve their operations, save them time, improve their cash flow as well.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a really good segue to the, I think trying to get at the challenge that so many people are facing, which is there's so much noise, right? And there's so much talk about it. There's so much you're going to go out of business if you don't sort of adopt here. Can you just set you just talked about software. Talk a little bit about the distinctions between software and AI, and the other term that gets heard a fair amount here is automation, which is a component, but not necessarily some of the things you just described are automation that doesn't necessarily involve any AI. So do you mind just sort of painting that picture for us?
Yeah. So I think it's important to start with software, traditional software as we think of it, which is a tool, right? It is a tool with a bunch of features and it does what you tell it. So you have to be the one, just like with any tool, you have to be the one clicking things or telling it what to do. AI is more like an assistant. It has context. It can make judgments. It can handle different exceptions or edge cases. And so that's the direction we're moving. That's when people talk about the agentic era, if you will. That's all that it means is we're going from a tool that you have to manage to an assistant that's going to take actions on your behalf based on instructions or context that you give it. The idea of an automation is sequence of steps that send information or take action between different pieces of software or sources of data. And so automations can, as you alluded to, Peter, they don't have to necessarily be using AI. When we say AI, we primarily mean large language models and their capabilities. Automations can be just code steps, deterministic code steps that just say, go execute on this. Don't make any judgment calls. Don't do any sort of the reasoning that LLMs do. So hopefully I think tool versus assistant is probably just the simplest, at least that's the simplest metaphor that I have in my head that helps me understand where we are today. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Would you paint the picture for us of, because you have this unique visibility into, a lot of contractors that are at this sort of, couple of trucks, 10 people kind of size. How would you describe the state of adoption? And I think maybe as part of that, answering that question, what's happening with the FSMs and the other tools that people are using on a regular basis, because all of them are incorporating AI pretty heavily.
Yeah. So it's moving really quickly. Last year, I believe ServiceTitan just came out with a report. Last year, about 15% of contractors reported that AI had implemented it in their business and they had seen meaningful benefit. This year, that number is 38%. So we're seeing, an increasing amount of adoption, but that's still a minority of all contractors. So if you're sitting here today listening and you're like, I haven't done anything yet, you're not behind. All this stuff is here and it's time to learn it, but you're certainly not behind. There is a gap between, and we think about this a lot, between the small and the large contractors in that adoption. We basically see a 20% delta between the small contractor and the large contractor in their current implementation and adoption. And that's what we obsess about and think about all the time at WorkHero. If you can't tell from my hat and everything that we think about, like we want to help the small independent businesses out there adopt, implement these tools. But we want to help you do it, right? We want to build custom automations for you. The only other thing I would mention around, you asked about the FSMs and what are they doing today and then what else is out there. You can think of the current field service management software as deploying a lot of AI already today. So when you think of the automated texts that they're sending to the homeowner after they've invoiced a technician, that's been around for a long time. That's a version of an automation, or the invoicing tools that they're releasing, which are helping it make it a little bit easier to invoice. These are automations that are built in. The really exciting point that maybe we'll get into more is we are now in what I would describe as the Claude Code era. I know that ChatGPT has Codex and there's other tools out there, but Claude Code, which was only released about 12 months ago, has dramatically changed the ability to build custom software. And so FSMs are putting some AI into place, but really where you're going to see, and you're already seeing so much action, is completely custom software for a specialized contractor in really narrow niches who are either building custom software on top of their system of record, or they're building it from scratch. And this is it's kind of where we are today. And it's the wild, wild west, I think.
Yeah, sure is. The Energy Circle team will affirm the concept of the Wild West, because I built a tool on my own for calculating the crossover point of when oil heat prices go north of $4 a gallon, when is a heat pump a more economical solution? And I did that all by myself.
Yeah.
Thanks to Claude. Okay. There's this 20% gap between the small companies and the big companies. Is that really entirely related to just sort of staffing issues and kind of the capability, the sort of resources that bigger companies have?
That plus I would say there's the financial resources, and there's probably the most important resource, which is time. And that's the one that we think about a lot for the small business owner. But yeah, if you have a dedicated team of 4 CSRs and 1 accounts receivable person and 1 accounts payable person and 2 office managers, which is like a sort of classic shop, that you're probably running, 10 to 15 to 20 trucks at that point. Then you can just, tell someone, hey, go learn Claude Code, or go learn the latest Service Titan module on Marketing Pro or Dispatch Pro, and implement all the latest AI tools. If you're your own small business owner, and when at night or on the weekends, you're just making sure that every invoice gets sent out, you don't necessarily have the time to learn these tools.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe let's go now to try to be like really specific and practical about some of the kind of applications. And I guess, is there one particular back office function that you have is the biggest pain point for contractors, and where there has been a good AI solution?
Yeah, there's a lot out there. But I think I would probably choose job costing, because it's one where there's a lot of different sources of data. And what AI is best at is working with unstructured data, as they say. Basically, so let's walk through it. So in the case of job costing, after a job is complete, a technician hopefully records all their notes inside of their House Call Pro, right? And they describe the capacitor or whatever else went on in that job. At that point, a few things need to happen. The first is there should have been some sort of slip or invoice coming from the supply house that was emailed to the contractor. If that's the office manager, the owner, whoever's responsible for taking that invoice and matching those equipment costs to the job. Right. For that to happen accurately, that often requires manual matching of jobs, especially in the case where there are multiple jobs at a given location, right? Because at that point, you need to really work off the purchase order number, not just the address, which is often used as the unique identifier. Yeah. So you have this information about equipment costs that's living in your email, right? And you haven't matched it. You have the technician notes that are in your field service management software. All of that needs to, and then you have the number of hours that the technician spent on the job. That might live in your payroll software. That might live in a text thread that you send. That might not be anywhere at all. And so previously, I would say that I don't actually know the number here, but most small contractors I talk to don't have the time to effectively do this kind of job costing, because it just takes so much time.
Yeah.
In the era of AI, when we talk about working with unstructured data, it can reference your email. It can literally reference your email and that email that you got from the supplier. It can reference a text thread or wherever the information exists about the number of hours spent on the job from the technician. And then it can also reference those technician notes inside of House Call Pro. And so what you can do is you can generate the invoice to be sent to the customer, but then you can also match that invoice to your actual equipment costs and your actual labor costs, and make sure all that makes its way into QuickBooks. This is a process for a given job could take you 30 minutes or an hour to just chase down all that information, and can be done in a minute with workflow and the right tool set up. Hopefully that's just one concrete example.
I think that's super helpful and super practical. It also sounds like the setup for it might be somewhat on the complicated side. So is that something for WorkHero clients that you guys do for companies?
It is, exactly. Our belief is that there's a really exciting opportunity to use AI tools to build custom automations. And the custom part, I think, is really important, especially for this audience, right? We're just coming off of NHPC where there's so many specialty and high performance contractors out there who through you guys at Energy Circle and other friends in the industry I've really gotten to know, and they might really care about, a custom quote, right? That really doesn't just list equipment or, numbers that they don't understand, but really educates the customer on why should you use variable speed instead of single speed? Or why should you think about, the blower door test or whatever it is? And, where Energy Circle talks all the time about educating the customer, I think that AI gives you the opportunity to take complex job information and build really custom quotes in this case that serve up the customer. So long way of saying WorkHero can do this for customers. I see a lot of guys that are learning it themselves too. And that's giving me that's really exciting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. One of the things you're kind of inferring here is a longstanding problem that has existed for any companies that are diagnostically oriented, right? They believe in the building science. They typically start a job by collecting a bunch of data. And one of the long-standing challenges has been this idea that, I have to package that all together into an energy audit report. And there's been these, huge time gaps from the time of the collection of the data to actually delivering it back to homeowners. And frankly, homeowners not even really wanting a long form thing. So it's really interesting that there's all these new tools for gathering data, right? The LiDAR-based dimensioning tools and automated manual J's and so forth. And so this is sort of an interesting way of expediting that whole process, right? Is that happening?
Yeah. I think of a custom quoting tool that we're building for a small contractor out in Colorado right now. Yeah. Where that's doing exactly a version of that. One thing I'll mention you mentioned data capture. We have the really cool LiDAR technologies that are being able to accelerate the load calculation. We now have the ability to scrape information from photos, right? And so the model and serial number and other information can be extracted really easily. Hopefully those photos are either in their FSM software or in a Google Drive, and we can pull that information out, which is important to register the equipment or the rebate. Then there's also voice. And I would say we're still at the very beginning of this across the trades, but a vision where a contractor leaves their job, and instead of having to get home and type on their phone or type on their computer, everything they remembered from that job, or while they're on the job, typing in notes, so many of us think much faster and more cogently by just speaking into our phone. And we are not far from a future where, and this is what a lot of the field service management software are trying to build right now too, a future where you can just talk into your phone for 5 minutes about all the different specs of a really custom job and everything that customer might need. And it can spit out a professional looking custom quote with your company's logo and brand and your preferred style.
Really interesting. I mean, part of the picture you're painting, Furman, is the ability, it's back to the Claude Code thing, like the accessibility of developing your own applications, is in some ways, in a very real world way, fulfilling what you hear a lot of, which is, these software as a service is a threatened. I'm curious. So when someone engages you guys and you are part of the team, are these kinds of custom developments that you're describing part of the package?
Exactly. So when you work with WorkHero, we first want to learn your process manually. And do that work manually. So whether it's sending an invoice to a customer or a rebate, we do that work manually to start so that we can make sure that it's high fidelity. And then we at this point have built, a library of about 200 automations already that are can be deployed on an account. But usually there's going to be some tweaking because the actual requirements in a specific rebate program in a specific state might vary. And because, with invoicing, contractors have different preferences for the way this information gets communicated, whether it gets sent over email or text, a lot of different preferences. And so we take those preferences, tweak or tune the automation, and then deploy it in the account.
Yeah, that is really cool. And it just speaks to what a great, asset WorkHero is in a company. For those who may just be kind of at the beginning stages, they're listening, they're curious, they're, like many business owners, including me, are laying awake at night, trying to figure out how to move faster. Where would you recommend people start? Like, what's the easy entry point here to just start building the muscle?
Yeah, I saw this recommendation online, and I've made it before to others, and I think it's a great one. Start in your personal life. Start in your personal life because everyone has something in their personal life that takes up a lot of their time and feels emotionally annoying to you. So that might be grocery planning or meal planning. That might be reviewing your email or something like that. Take one of those use cases and just have fun. Like, over a weekend, take 2 hours over a cup of coffee, and I would recommend starting on Claude Code. There's even a more accessible version of Claude called Cowork that still hooks into your systems. You can look up Anthropic's safety policies. They're among the best in the industry there, and start to make sure that all of your tools are hooked up appropriately. And so that's really important, right? Claude makes it really easy through what they call connectors to make sure your Google Drive or whatever storage you're using, your email, everything is hooked up. And then just in plain text, and this is the important part, these large language models are increasingly good at picking up on what you need from very little information. My biggest recommendation here would be to use their voice functionality to describe what you need. So let's just take the example of a meal planning tool. You could describe, hey, Claude, every Saturday, I go shopping for my family. I'm trying to plan out, 3 dinners and 5 meal lunches and anything else. And I have these specifications, and one of my kids is allergic to this, and I want to be able to every week take a photo of my fridge and give you a couple ideas for what I want, and then you just give me the grocery list. And it will build this what will effectively become your custom meal planning agent for you. Every Saturday, it will ping you and say, hey, I need that photo from the fridge. You can upload that photo and then it'll give you the list. Something like this is probably less stressful, hopefully, than your actual professional life, and will immediately show you the power of this. Once you have some confidence, you can start to, tackle some other
cool things. I like that example. Although I'm not sure I want anybody, including a robot AI, seeing my refrigerator.
What's in your fridge, PT?
Let's wrap by just sort of fast forwarding a couple of years. And I'd love this answer to be tailored to this unique niche of high performance contractors. Can you envision like what the picture looks like of a company that has kind of embraced, that is fully utilizing these tools, and really kind of running their business around it? In a some reasonable period of time. The pace of change is so remarkably head spinning. I know this is a hard question, but where do you see the small contractor sort of looking like in 2-3 years?
It's a great question. It's a hard question. I would love to turn it back to you and almost hear your answer. But I'll say that, for a long time, you and others have helped me understand that there's a trade-off that I think the small high performance contractor has to make. And that trade-off is between profit and good work, high performance work. And every single session I've attended at the symposium down in Florida, every single other conference or podcast I listen to talks about this trade-off and how we handle it. And I am hopeful, although not completely convinced, but hopeful that there's a future where that trade-off starts to change. I think for 2 reasons. One is that there's overhead in the form of custom quoting, in the form of follow-up visits, in the form of diagnostics that will be made easier or alleviated by AI. And the second reason is because of customer education. I think you have an opportunity to do more with less, take information in your head and translate it using AI into customer facing information that hopefully will be able to allow you to communicate your value. And so my hope is that in 3, 5, 10 years, we'll be in a world where high performance contractors get to charge what they're worth and don't have to spend their nights and weeks fretting about the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer. And one of the things that we're, in all of our data, we're noticing, changing very rapidly is how much better informed homeowners are as they come come through the door for the first time. Now, that's a double-edged sword, right? So everybody thinks they're smarter than the contractor because they've learned about building science via AI. So, really interesting. Furman, what's the best way to get in touch with you or stay connected with you particularly and WorkHero?
Yeah. You can email me directly. My email's Furman, Furman at workhero.pro. We can put that in the show notes. And then you can find WorkHero online, www.workhero.pro, on YouTube, LinkedIn, all the other socials. So please get in touch. If any of this resonates, if you're a contractor or if you just want to talk about any of these problems and issues.
Great. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being such a clear thinker about this and a clear communicator about it. We all need it, and you're really generous to tell the world as much as you have been doing in all these presentations and here today. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Peter.
The High Performance Edge podcast is brought to you by our company, Energy Circle, the marketing agency that for 15 years has served the most successful high-performance contractors in the country. Curious about whether we might be a good fit for your marketing and website needs? It begins with a no-obligation, no hard sales discussion of your business and goals and an honest assessment of whether we can make an outsized impact on your company. Check out energycircle.com or email me directly at peter@energycircle.com.